Righto. Well, we'll come back and give you a big highlights intro or something like that, Danny. But
You'll dice and splice.
yeah, I actually never know how to start a podcast. But I think I did write a little intro for you. But I think Danny, for what I know, and as we said last night, had a housemate that used to work very closely with you, and I think that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Really heard about you for the first time, and then ever since it's been your name here, there, and everywhere. And I think, obviously, with LAWD and the work you're doing in your first year there, transacting nearly $1 billion, which is insane. And I think today, what I'd love to chat to you about, and I think so many people would know of you, but it's more about where you've come from and what that journey's been. And we're obviously here at Yulupna, so thank you for the opportunity. But I'd love to know Yulupna Station and Yulupna Pastoral and this area of Northern Victoria. What does it mean to you?
Oh, it's interesting, Ollie. I'd probably be better known as a guy that's relatively hard nosed and a transactional guy because of my professional work. But I do have a passion project here, and it's a profitable passion project, but a passion project here at Yulupna Pastoral, which is my sort of Uber side hustle, if you like. And I'm from this part of the world, so whilst I was born in Mount Gambier in South Australia, all of my formative years, primary school and beyond, was spent in little towns in the closer settled irrigation districts in Northern Victoria, around Nathalia, Numurkah, Stanhope and Rushworth. And so about 30 years ago, or 33 years ago now, my father was asked to come for a job interview here at Yulupna when Brian Grover, founder of Compass Airlines, owned it. And we came, and I was blown away by the place, loved it. It's 1,800 acres, surrounded by the Murray River and the Yulupna Creek, and that's why they call it an island, an inland island, if you like. And the place was absolutely beautiful, and Brian at the time had it immaculately landscaped, and he had a Simmental stud here. As a 15-year-old, agricultural tragic, I came here and it blew me away. I just thought, oh, Dad, you're going to take that job, aren't you? And Dad said, no, that guy's going to go broke. And as it turned out, Compass Airlines and Brian went broke, and the property was sold in receivership, and it was held by the Hay family for 26 years. And then I saw it for sale one day, just driving along the highway. I saw a sign saying Yulupna Island for sale, and drove down here and drove in and bought the place. And so I was supported by some friends. So the Sagar family and another friend of mine, Paul Cowan, helped me buy it. And then it's been the cornerstone for the portfolio of, 20,000 acres or so that we've built in this part of the world.
And talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned your childhood in and around this area. We were chatting yesterday, and pretty interesting childhood that really shaped you. So talk to me about your family growing up. Was just you, siblings, and where did you guys go? What was your old man like?
Yeah, so Dad's a practicing farmer, if you like. So he grew up in agriculture down at 8 Mile Creek, down in Mount Gambier. He's one of 12 kids, sort of a strong Methodist family. My mother's one of five kids. She's the daughter of a sawmiller. And so, I would say that means everybody's from ag in one way, shape or form. Dad was a bit of an itinerant, pretty wild in my young years, I'm led to believe. Reformed alcoholic, so he stopped drinking when I turned 1, when my mother threatened to leave him. And so I never took a drink again after that. An incredibly hard worker, but a hard physical worker. So he's a relatively intelligent guy, Dad, but didn't always make what I would call smart decisions. So he is a great provider, but he did that carting hay, shearing sheep, milking cows, doing all those sorts of farm labour type things. So it wasn't until we moved to Stanhope when I was in grade 4 or 5 that he sort of started to get a bit of stability in his life, if you like. What it meant for us, though, is that for me as the eldest son, I lived in 20 houses before I was 20. I had 2 primary schools and 2 high schools. And so I think that probably had a significant influence on who I am today, in that I'm not romantically attached to property or where I live. In terms of the way I work today, I'm home infrequently, and that doesn't worry me. Quite happy travelling and living out of a suitcase. I find it easy to meet people and build rapport with them. And I think all of that's really because of where I came from.
And for you, this business side of agriculture, so growing up in all these different ag communities, what was it that interested you on this side, or did you fall into it?
Yeah, my whole career is a mistake, Ollie, and I think if you really drill down into where most people come from, they'd say that a lot of it's a mistake. A lot of it's good luck and being lucky enough to have some sponsors that see that you've got some talent and invest some time into you and give you some direction. So, look, I went to RMIT when I left high school, and I did the property course, and one of my first interactions was with my now partner, Peter Sagar. And Peter had gone back to university, having been out doing real estate for a period of time. And here's one of those sliding doors moments. I was going to university to become a real estate agent, but a degree qualified real estate agent. And Peter said, don't be a knucklehead. You can go and get your real estate ticket going to TAFE. You should do the valuation course, do the valuation stream. And that's been the foundation for my professional career. So that's sort of my first sliding doors moment. And then the next one was, falling into a job on an internship at the Valuer General's office, which is a public service. The antithesis of anything my father would have wanted me to do, working for the public service. But Jeff Kennett was the Premier at the time, so that was okay in his eyes. And then I had a spectacular career, I think, at the Valuer General's office. I got promoted, I think, almost every year I was there. And by the time I left, I was running the compulsory acquisition area. And I think that, where you're physically taking somebody's property from them, they don't have a choice. It's like the castle, and doing that on the government side, I think that honed my negotiation skills. So that sort of set me up then for going out into private practice, I think.
How did you go separating the emotional side of knowing what was happening to families with the business side of what actually had to happen?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I just used to be reminded by what Justice Gobbo used to say. He's the guy that wrote the Compulsory Acquisition Act. He said, dispossessed owners are entitled to the maximum allowable under the law. And so I always had a mindset of trying to get them the maximum, no matter what side I was working on, whether I was working for the government or working for them, So rather than advocating, just taking a positive view about what they should get. I'm a bit disappointed about where that's gotten to today with some of the authorities and some of the various state governments. I think a lot of them are just mean, frankly. When I see the way they treat a landowner, particularly when in the context of the project, the land value that we're arguing about is often less than 1 or 2% of the total project cost. So, you see some of the largesse that happens, with construction workers and people spinning signs and all those things that are quite topical in the media at the moment. And then you hear about a landowner where they're nickel and diming over 10 or 20 grand here and there. And that does give me the shit.
Yeah, absolutely. You were saying yesterday you've only really ever had 3 or 4 jobs. So you've been incredibly loyal to the different jobs you've stepped into. So I'd love to know, what was it that got you to move on from that initial job?
Yeah, I have sort of mentally, if you like, moments of reflection when I hit certain ages. And so as I was approaching 30 at the Valuer General's office, I had a choice to make, I think, about whether or not to go and, complete my MBA. The guys were happy to sponsor me to do an MBA and prospectively become a future Valuer General, which could have been interesting, but would have meant I was a public servant the whole time, or I had an opportunity to go out into private practice. So I went into private practice, not for the money, but probably for the experience. And then I spent a couple of years with a group called CJ Lee, and then was recruited by some guys at M3 Property who made me a partner. That's a great business, M3 Property, and been very, very successful. But I was headhunted out of there by CBRE as well after sort of 3 or 4 years. And that was remarkable. Working for a global real estate firm, with all of the exposure to, large pension funds and whatever else. And one of the things that I really noticed in going from a private firm, which very, very good company and well respected, into a large global firm is that when you went and had those conversations with the clients, you didn't have to say, this is who we are, and this is what we do. Everyone knew who CBRE were, the largest real estate services firm in the world. So that's all the positive stuff about working for a big firm like that. The negative stuff about working for a big firm like that is you're not particularly relevant. On global revenues of $30 or $40 billion, my tin pot little business doing, 10 or 15 or $20 million of revenue is not particularly relevant. And so after what was nearly 10 years there, I certainly felt like we were a square peg in a round hole, and a number of us during COVID drifted away. I think that business probably lost some perspective during COVID, might have lost its way and forgotten what its mission is. And so I left, and I left with the genuine intent of making my side hustle, my main caper. And then, one thing led to another here in terms of, my then investor, John Nicoletti, wanting to take some money back and me having to find another investor, and a few other things. And so I joined my colleagues at Lord.
And well, I'd be interested because you said that money wasn't the primary driver. Has what motivated you at different times of your career changed? And yeah, looking back at that first job and through your 20s, what was it that was motivating you, and how has that evolved as you've, I guess, got yourself to being towards the top?
I think if you're lucky enough, and it's typically only, you're going to laugh at this when I say it, given I'm far from an elite sportsman, but elite sportsman, for example,
oh, please, come on.
Get to maybe an elite sumo wrestler, but elite sportsmen are probably one of the few people who could say honestly that they love what they do, and some of them don't either, I suppose, but they're doing something that they're good at and they enjoy it and they flog themselves because they're passionate about it. If you're lucky enough to find your thing, the work that motivates you and means that you get out of bed at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and you'll drive all the distances or do the stupid flights or put up with a tongue lashing from one of your clients, whatever else. If you can find that thing where it's not actually work, where you enjoy it, then the money and all the rest of the bullshit's a happy byproduct. Yeah. Do I make good money? Yeah, I make extraordinary money. It's unbelievable. Is that good for my family and whatever else? Yep. Do I go and do stupid things and spend money on cars and whatever else? Yep. I do some stupid midlife crisis type things. Yep, absolutely. But first and foremost, it's the work that is the draw and the thing that gets you out of bed. It's not a yearning. For me, it's not a yearning for money. The that's wonderful and it buys you time and means you can do good things for your family and all of that stuff. But I actually enjoy the work. I enjoy all the people that we get to work with in the industry, Ollie. Like, you think about some of those, functions and industry get-togethers and whatever else we go to, and you're around the room and the people you get to talk to, it still blows me away today. I think it's remarkable.
And obviously, like I'd say, agriculture and being from rural towns, like there's a certain type of person. On the flip side, the other side of the people you're working with really are probably hard-nosed businessmen from an institutional, men and women, from an institutional lens. Like, what's that like to do that dance between, I guess, the grassroots and call it the vibe, for no better word, of what makes ag, but then also knowing, okay, there's real commercial interests and people are here to make money and you're in the middle of that table.
Yeah, I'm not romantic about it. I think, in the space that we're in, people are here to make money. In my own agricultural investments, I'm coin operator. We're here to make money. There's millions and millions of dollars at risk. We need to get a return on that. In where we sit here today, in Yalupna Pastoral, Rock Partners are our institutional partner here. They've got superannuants money invested here. It must get a return. And so that's very, very important. So I don't think any of that's an issue. I think for the most part, most of the guys that we deal with in the institutional space are from agriculture. So they understand the twists and the turns, the ups and the downs, the volatility. There is a degree of empathy amongst some of them, where they are from the land. So they're perhaps not as hard-nosed as they would like to pretend to be. Most of them are very, very good people. The only time, in my experience, there's friction is when you're dealing with people who are from the investment universe that perhaps don't have the experience in ag, where they don't have that intuitive base around decisions. So if you don't have that intuition and you've got to have everything explained to you in triplicate, that can be very difficult, in ag, because a lot of people, if they've come from a commercial real estate background, that's just they're getting a rental income from something that's three-dimensional space. When you're dealing with agriculture, the income is part of the hereditament of the land. It's from how you're using the land. And so getting people to understand how stuff grows, or that a cow gestates for 9 months or a sheep gestates for 5 months, and when you get them pregnant and when you want them to have the baby, and then what you're going to do with the progeny, those things can be difficult when someone's got no knowledge. But typically speaking, most of the people who we deal with have good knowledge.
I want to go back to the elite athlete, to be elite in real estate. But I think going back to being the best you can be, like, I'd love to know more about, people see Danny as where you are today, but they haven't seen the 25 years that have gone with it.
That's an old line of mine. Only overnight success in 25 years. Yeah, that's right.
What has it taken for you to actually be the best? And if we borrow the Australian Property Journal, the king of rural property, but what has it taken to be elite at what you do?
Well, I don't agree with the premise of the question, but to be the best you can be in your career, it's about dedication. It's about paying your dues and doing your time. And if I have a frustration with some of our younger colleagues, not necessarily the guys that work at Lord, they're pretty grounded. They've come from good families and they've got good values. But some of the younger kids that I get to meet from time to time, is they're just a bit forward, a bit sort of high in the saddle in terms of where they are. And I'd really like to see those guys start where they are, not where they want to be. I gave a talk to the Young
Agribusiness Rural Network
in Brisbane 100 years ago. And in that, I contrasted my father's career, if I could call it that, sporadic and schizophrenic and never keeping a job for more than a year, with my own. And, I sort of challenged the young people in the room there to not fake it till they make it, just to start where they are and not where they want to be. Find a good sponsor or mentor, somebody that sees some value in them, invest some time in them. So when I was at the Valuer General's office, I had a guy, Brendan Rice, who's still a long life friend of mine now. He's in his 70s. He took me under his wing, saw that I had some talent, spent an enormous amount of time with me, trained me, taught me things about business. That was all incredibly invaluable. My starting salary at the Valuer General's office was $6,000 per annum, not per month.
And this was late 90s?
That's right, 1997.
Jesus.
That's right. And so, they were in the days where, groups like that saw that they were delivering value to whoever they put on, and so they didn't have to pay them. And I think, some of the younger people just need to give themselves a little bit of an uppercut and have a bit of a think about what it is that they want to achieve, and not be afraid of going and investing in yourself by not getting wrapped up in what your starting salary is. Like, I think it's humorous that, a graduate coming out of ag or valuations or something would expect a starting salary of 6 figures. Like, you don't know anything. And if this market gets a little bit tougher, like we've had full employment for 20 years, but if this market gets a little bit tougher, I think the people that are going to succeed in that are the people that are less wrapped up in what they get paid and are more wrapped up in the quality of the work they get to do and what that means for them in terms of progressing their career. And I can tell you now, if you make that investment early and you show that you got a modicum of talent, you can deliver, and you're a good operator and you work hard, you'll go from 0 to 200 grand a year in a heartbeat. So it's not where you start. It's where you're trying to get to. And so, when I was contrasting the $6,000 with the, $2.5 million I made in the year that I was giving the presentation to the staff, I said that sort of, whatever you call it, parabolic graph, that huge ski jump in terms of what my annual income was all because of that foundational learning, the investment I'd made in myself, in my relationships and whatever else. And then one day it just clicks and you're off, you're away, bang, off you go, And then you got more than you know what to do with. It's wonderful.
And you can have that midlife crisis.
Yeah, that's right. You can go and buy a busted old Bentley.
Yeah. Has there been a moment where, like in rural real estate or whatever, but working in agriculture, where you've become frustrated or you've thought about exiting stage left, or have you been able to maintain that passion and the candle burning?
Oh, no, I think it was my time at CBRE. So, during COVID, I had to sack some people. The business said I had to sack some people. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I actually objected to having to do that, but did it. That was my job. They wouldn't let us travel. As far as I was concerned, agriculture was exempt, and we should have been able to travel and service ag. I had a couple of years there of really not enjoying myself at all. And I said to my wife, I'm hating this. I just want to leave. And Kate's a wonderful woman. She said, do you do whatever you want to do? Just don't stay there if you don't do it. And I said, there's mortgages and there's responsibilities and all of those things. And she said, well, we'll work all that out. If you don't want to be there, don't be there. She was very keen to make sure that I was happy and enjoying my work. And I thought, geez, that's extraordinary support. And so I did. And everything didn't plan out exactly as I thought it would in doing that departure. I had a 6-month notice period and whatever else, and things changed in the 6 months in terms of, what was going on here at UPC. And so, I ended up going and joining Lord, and then we had that extraordinary first year. And one of the really important things there is that Liz O'Leary, who's a great lady. I don't know, have you met Liz in your travels doing your stuff?
No, she's on the list of people I'd love to talk to.
Make sure you go and catch up with Liz. She's a ripper.
Yeah.
And Liz, supported us in that first year, giving us Lawson grains to sell. And in some respects, there's absolutely no reason at all that someone at the Silver Donut at Macquarie should have been giving a startup business, a job like that to do. But in her mind, I think it was about the people and our connections and, how we would steward the sale. And we got an extraordinary result. Well, I think we got an extraordinary result. And, that's now owned by AIMCO and managed by Newag. And, those guys have put some more money into that business and made it something even more special than what it was, So that's a real career highlight of mine, being able to work on a job like that. And very, very, very lucky that that was one of the ones that we got to do in our first year. On the back of that, Bex Wilson at Proterra gave us two of her portfolio assets to sell, and we blew the doors off that as well. And so that's where that sort of $1 billion in the first year came from.
What's it been like to be able to build the team from the ground up in the business and really shape the culture and the business standards that you'd love to see?
Yeah, that's unreal, and it comes with a lot of responsibility too. So, when you're employing people, and you're asking them to come on a journey with you, yes, someone like Tim McKinnon. I've worked with Tim now for 18 years. I've been with Tim longer than I've been with my wife, and it's terribly sad. It's my work wife, but we've got a group of people there who have been working together for a long time. We understand each other's limitations. We understand each other's motivations. Yeah, the most fulfilling thing for me is, notwithstanding, you get to build a team and you work together and you do great work and whatever else. One of the more fulfilling things, and I probably don't say this enough to these guys, is seeing them buy a house, start a family, buy a farm, to scratch their itch. That's that sort of does it for me. I really enjoy that. For all of the flotsam and jetsam and the work and whatever else, it's those things where you see people getting along and you've been able to help them get along. That I really enjoy that.
Yeah, really start to build a life, but also wealth associated to it.
Yeah, for them building wealth and getting somewhere. I mean, I just think that's so important. Yeah.
You're a bit of a softie, really, aren't you, Daddy?
Don't fucking tell anyone.
I want to talk to you, and because I know, so a couple of years ago I was at a Marcus Oldham leadership program, and they had mentioned that yourself and Kate had made a donation or commitment to the students to be able to help them go on the international trip. So, like, why is giving back important to you, and how do you find things that you are interested in kind of supporting?
Yeah, that's interesting. Rob McGavin sort of put my arm up my back, and a couple of the other guys there, Buff and a few others, and said, Lord should sponsor this. Lord gets a lot out of the industry, and I agreed, but we'd set our budget for the year in terms of what our giving would be. And I reflected on it for a while. I think they'd been let down by another sponsor. And, Kate and I are having a really good year. And I'm not quite sure if I consulted with Kate about this or not. I might have just done it. But I sort of thought, well, yeah, that's not a bad cause. They've got a hole in terms of their sponsorship, so we did the donation. The why is probably the more important thing. It was a lot of money. Agency businesses like ours and people who work in professional services that look after, agricultural clients, we all get an extraordinary return for very little invested. Are we gouging people? No, I don't think we are. Are we adding value? Yes, I think we are. But we don't have the millions of dollars invested that the farmer has invested in their land, plant and equipment, all of those things. So the things that we have at risk are a car and a laptop and some office space and a whole bunch of people. And so I actually think we do a poor job, and I'm calling this out for all agency businesses. I don't think any of the agency businesses or the professional services groups that service ag donate enough back to the communities that give them what they give them in relative terms. So, Kate and I have our own sort of views about the things that we do. She has some things that she gives to that aren't related to ag. But we have a thing in our place, in our house, if you like, where, there's an amount of money that we will give away every year. And we just think that that's our obligation. We get a good lend. What did my mate, I had a mate who owned a strip club, rough and tumble sort of guy, Ray Bartlett. And he's been a great influence on my life, would you believe? A strip club owner. Been a great influence on my life. And he used to have a turn of phrase that appeals to me. He says, we all come in the same way. We all go out the same way. Some of us are having a bigger lend on the way through than others. And we've been lucky enough to have a bigger lend. So I think there are things that you should give to around education and mental health and in Kate's case, homelessness and those sorts of things. That's a passion project for her, where you should be giving back. And I would just say to some of our peers, I think we should be giving more, all of us. And I'm very happy to say that at LAWD, we do have a significant allocation that's given to education, supporting and bringing young people along in ag and mental health. And, as I sit around the boardroom table, I'm going to make sure that we keep doing that as we go forward, because I think it's very, very important. And so for us, it's a meaningful proportion of our gross revenue. And I'd like to see, some of our peers make a more meaningful allocation of their gross revenue or their EBITDA than what they do at the moment, notwithstanding the fact they give a lot of money. So I'm very, very happy that they give a lot of money in terms of total dollars. I just think they should be giving more.
And as you were saying that, one thing I was wondering, you've met so many different people. How has mental health impacted you through the networks and people that you've met?
Oh, it's interesting, Ollie. I'm a strong guy myself, and I had a flirtation with it. So, I was getting belted up by CBRE there at one stage. Everything around me here at Yallupna was going to custard. It was the middle of COVID. Things were tough, and I was staying in the Sofitel in Melbourne. Sofitel's at 25 Collins Street. And it's an interesting building. It's got this great big void in the middle of it. And so all the rooms are around the outside and there's this big void and you can sort of peer over the void when you come out of your room. So there's one morning there where I was feeling particularly jaded and shithouse and I looked over, just sort of peered over the thing and I thought to myself, I wonder if things would be easier if I just bloody jumped off the edge here and, went splatto down at the bottom of the void. Anyhow, I sort of looked at how high the balustrade was. Just designed so you can't just climb over it, And I sort of looked back to the room and thought I'd have to drag a chair out of there and drag it up to the balustrade here and then climb up that and then jump over, and I'm hardly athletic. I thought, oh, bugger, it's too hard. I'll just go to work. But I share that, and I think it's one of the few dark moments I've had in my life. I just share that dark moment with you because even all the people that are around you that you think have got their shit together and whatever else, often don't. We had a tragedy around Easter with one of our staff, Stuart, who, seemingly took his own life. And we'd had a staff conference, just a month before that. Stuart was the life of the party. Stuart was best on ground. He would have been voted, if you're having a vote, in our business, he would have been voted least likely to take his own life. And there we've had it touch us right in the heart of our business. And I know that's had a significant effect on a lot of our staff. Really sort of knocked us around. And I was at his funeral and, I was going really well. Everything was all right up to the end where his two little daughters put a flower each on the coffin. Wow, mate. I was no good for half an hour then because I got a little daughter. And so the mental health thing is absolutely real, and it's endemic in our society. It's not just in ag. I think young men are overrepresented in ag in terms of people that take their lives, but mental health's horrible, and for a modern wealthy society, that and homelessness are two of the things that I just can't get my head around. I can't work out how in one of the richest per capita nations in the world we can have those problems. And so that's part of the reason why I think, we should be making sure we're giving more money to the health bit. The education bit I think is really important just for the continuity of our industry. But the mental health thing's very, very important.
Yeah, and it comes down to wellbeing. I was chatting to, and I'm going to have to think of the name, but Dr. Toby Ford from Ford Health, and he's been doing a study of wellbeing in general society. He's actually starting to look at trying to run a project, I think 100 farmers in the first year, and then wants to get to 1,000 to understand when farmers are well, what does that look like, and then how does that benefit and impact their business community and society more broadly. So the other thing I'd love to ask you about is goals. So you ticked off lots of things, lots of big moments and sales. Looking ahead, what's driving you for the next, let's call it, through to retirement, 30 years?
I've got no idea, Ollie. I'm just having a good time. So what I find as I get older is that I get worn out quicker. And so you would have seen that last night, I was sitting there at the table, jumping up and down on the one spot by 8:30. And so I left you guys and I went home and I went to bed. So in our business now, what I was finding was that I was becoming a bad people leader. And so after growing businesses and developing people and doing those things for, 20 years, or whatever it is, nearly 20 years, I was running out of puff I was getting a bit grumpy, and the wick was pretty short, to go from 0 to really grumpy didn't take a whole lot. And I was getting sick of people whinging about, how tired they were or how hard they thought they were working, or coming to a review and asking me for more money. And so in consultation with the business, I said, how about you get rid of all the people so I don't have to deal with any people, as in the staff. And I'm saying that, I'm being a bit naughty the way I'm saying that. It's not exactly what I meant. But one of the things that the guys have done for me recently is Jacqueline Hope's joined us from PwC, and Jacqueline's dealing with all of the reporting and the mentoring and bringing staff along and whatever else, and that's been incredibly liberating for me. I don't do a whole lot of admin now. All I do is work. And I must say I don't do any life admin either. Kate and my CFO Damien and Cameron, who runs Yulupna, they do all of the admin of everything else, and again, all I get to do then is work. And so I'm having the time of my life, just enjoying catching up with clients, taking people for inspections, doing deals. That's been very, very liberating. So what are the goals? I'm just going to keep doing that for as long as I continue to enjoy it. One thing I will say is I've got a 6-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son, and I turned 50 in about 18 months. And the deal that I've got with my wife, who's been very supportive of me working the way I am working, is that when I'm 50, she'd like to see me home a bit more. My daughter will be 8 and my son will be 4. And I think I'd like to be home a bit more then too, just to make sure that things are good at school and whatever else, and that Kate's supported as well.
Challenge you with the nightly homework.
Yeah, that's right. I've done none of that.
Yeah. No, Danny, thank you so much for sitting down for a chat. And I think we'll have a bit of a real estate update as well coming up.
Gonyally, thank you.